Toastmasters to be officially District 19 Certified Contest Judges. Ooh, that's an elite title. For some Toastmasters, participating in the tradition of speech contests is a very important part of their Toastmasters experience. But bad judges can make it a very negative experience. We're here this morning to help make sure that that doesn't happen. The session leader is Mike Anderson. Mike is a distinguished Toastmaster who has run contests as both an area governor and division governor. Has participated in contests including winning the District 19 International Speech Contest and is a former District 19 Chief Judge. Please welcome Mike for the Judges Certification Training.
Judge not, lest ye be judged. Did you know if you open the Bible, and turn to Matthew and look at that passage, there's a little asterisk at the end. And it says, unless you're a Toastmaster. His good friend Ralph Smedley suggested he put that in there. Fellow Toastmasters, thank you, Teresa, and welcome to District 19 Judges Training. In Toastmasters, we do indeed judge, and we do it for the same reasons we do everything else, to help others grow and to grow ourselves. We need judges. We need good judges. And Matthew was right in that we do judge our judges, maybe not officially, but we need judges who are fair, consistent, and competent, and that's why we're all here. When you do complete today's session, you will become District 19's first certified judges. It's a program, it's an attempt to educate the judges and help out the speakers, make sure they're getting to be fairly evaluated. If you sign the clipboard that's going around, if you haven't seen it yet, please make sure you do get it. That's the list that we will take if you indicate that it's all right, and your name will be put on the list that's posted on the website that area and division directors can go to and use to recruit judges. You'll get your first choice to be a judge at the different contests. So do try to sign that clipboard that's going around. So, judging. What are contests all about? They're about Corey May. Not because he's won the district contest like 4 times in the last 5 years, but because Corey epitomizes the speaker. How many of you have competed in a speech contest? Wow, fantastic. Let's get some story. How hard did you work on your speech?
Very.
Hardest you've ever worked on any speech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Others would agree? We owe it to all of that hard work put into those speeches, and not just the work, but also the dreams, the ambitions. We owe it to those people who invested so much to give them a fair shot. How many of you have ever been to a contest where after the result you wondered, boy, that's not the way I would have gone? That's natural, and it doesn't mean the wrong person won. But you don't want to be a contestant and walk out of there feeling you got cheated. I know of one very veteran Toastmaster who vowed he would never compete again after that happened to him. And he never has in probably been 15 years. He's never competed again because he got untreated fairly. And well, at least he felt he was treated unfairly. Again, that doesn't mean he was, but that's the perception. And you want to feel good walking out when you're a judge. You want those contestants to believe that at least it was a fair contest. Contests are about the contestants. Not about Corey, but about the contestants. Like I said, Corey epitomizes that though, and because of the hard work he puts in. I've seen him put incredible work. His winning speech last year, he did a good speech at district. But the work he put into it between district and the international stage was just incredible, and he really turned that speech around. He didn't accept it, oh, I won district, so now it's okay. He kept working on that speech, practice, and not just practice, but evolving the speech to make it more. It's a constant process. And that's the kind of dedication that, as a judge, you need to honor. All right, I'm going to make this presentation interactive. I got an hour and a half to kill here, people. So I need your help to do this, because I don't want to talk nonstop for an hour and a half. Go ahead and ask me questions. Go ahead and interrupt me. Let's talk all the way through it. If time gets to be an issue later on, and I think it's running tight, then I might ask you to hold your question till the end if it's complicated. But let's not take a chance on wasting any minutes. So go ahead and ask me questions as we go through this. Also, veteran judges, veteran contestants, please feel free to chime in with your thoughts too. If you have something else, an observation, something you'd like to elaborate on, you have something to contribute, just go ahead and speak up. I also encourage you to take notes you're going to be getting at the end of the presentation. I don't want you to be able to read it and then walk out. I want you to, you will be getting a copy of it for the reason that the next contest cycle doesn't begin for like 4 months. I don't want you to forget it all between now and then. So I encourage you to take some notes if there's anything that really strikes you. And then again, you'll be getting a copy of it. I've also maybe gone into a little bit more detail than people like, Mark, who's a PowerPoint expert. He's going to say, oh, you put too many words on that slide. Well, that's because I know you might need this in about 4 months to go back and review before you become a judge, or when the contest cycle starts. Let's look real quick at the things we're going to cover. We're going to look at who's qualified to be a judge, what are the minimum recommendations, what does that rule book say about that, what makes for a good judge, what makes a good judge and a bad judge. We're going to look at the judging ballots pretty carefully. We're going to look at how do you fill out the ballot once you've made your decision. We're going to look at how to deal with biases. And we're going to look at how to handle protests when they come up. Of course, judges are one of the only people, judges and contestants, are the only ones who can file protests. So we want to make sure that you understand what happens and what your role is in that. And then we're going to spend a fair amount of time on the Tall Tales Contest. Have you heard of the Tall Tales Contest? That's something, it's an officially sanctioned Toastmasters contest, but it hasn't been done in this district in, as far as I know, 20, 30 years. And we're doing it this year. The district executive committee has decided, let's try it. We're changing all this contest stuff up. So next year it'll be the International Speech Contest and the Tall Tales Contest. But that means not only has nobody ever done one in this district, nobody's judged one in that district. So we are going to look at an example of a tall tale, and we're going to look at the judging form, because it's a little different than the others. And then I expect we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. We'll see. All right, eligibility. I can't look at it easily, so I've got to come back here with you guys and see this. Is my microphone picking this up? All right, let's look at, I'm not going to read every word, sorry Mark, I know you want me to do that. The key part is the part in red. Obviously you have to be a paid member, but the key part is to be a judge, you have to have been a member for at least 6 months. Now at the club level, anybody, as long as you're a paid member, you can be a judge. But in area and higher, you have to have been a member at least 6 months, and you have to have completed a minimum of 6 projects in the CC manual or completed 2 levels in pathways, which I think probably pretty much counts out everybody about that 6 months thing, because I don't know anybody who's got through all that in 6 months. You did? Show off.
Yeah.
Congratulations, that's great. And the rule book actually says you actually have to be there to be a judge, which would seem obvious, but there are some competitions in other parts of the world where sometimes contests are, things happen online. All right, what are the responsibilities of voting judges? Well, obviously, you decide the winners of the contest, that's the big one. But there's also such issues as maintaining the integrity of the contest. I mean, we are Toastmasters. We want this done right. We want to be able to point to the world champion of public speaking and say, He is the world champion of public speaking. He was the best this year. And so there's an integrity to the whole process. And it starts at the club level and goes all the way up, that we want to do it right. And when you're dealing with international speech contest starts with about 35,000 people around the world competing. When you're dealing with that, you want it to be as fair and as equal as it can possibly be. So that also means taking it seriously. I know sometimes we have fun at contests and we do a lot of joking, but the contest, it really is a big deal. Again, it goes back to honoring that speaker that we had talked about.
Mike, I was also going to mention, there's some of us that have done judging multiple times, and I think you can kind of fall into not taking it seriously because you've done it so often. You really should make sure to reset your brain and treat it like, seriously every time you do it too.
That's a good point. I mean, there are times where, I've gone in, many times as I've done it, thought, you know what, I think I know who won without even writing a thing down. I know who I'm going to end up picking, so why am I bothering writing all this down? But then I lecture myself and say, no, respect the process. Do it anyways. You never know, you might surprise yourself. Something might come up. You might, through the process, you might have a thought that might change your mind as to who actually had the best speech. So you do have to kind of respect the process, because everybody else in the world is respecting the process. So to be fair, it's just a way to do it and keep that continuity going. As part of that is knowing the contest rules. And that, as far as judging, what the speakers are supposed to do and what the ballot says. It's knowing, obviously, it's more the chief judge that deals with the contest rules than you do in terms of the contest overall. And we'll look at a little bit of that, because this is supposed to be some chief judges training too. We're not going to go into a lot of that, but if you have any chief judge questions, please make sure you ask me, stop being asking. I know we advertise this as also being chief judge. I kind of consider the two different in the way and they're really pretty different jobs, but they are connected, and so we do want to talk about that if we need to. You tell me. How many judges are there supposed to be? That's an ongoing issue, especially with new area directors. Mind your man. I'm going to be roaming. I don't want to just stand up there. So how many judges? It depends. Of course, at the club level, you can pretty much do what you want. In my club, what we do is everybody who's not a contestant is pretty much a judge. And we don't do official contests. We do exhibitions. We don't have to technically follow the rules. So we look at it as an educational process to give people who never get out of the club at least an idea of what the standards are for a speech in competition. But at the area level, a minimum of 5 voting judges, or the same number of judges as there are clubs in the area. The old rule book used to call that equal representation. Yeah, I don't really like equal representation, especially if you've only got 3 clubs in the area. 3 judges is not enough. I don't care how many contestants you have. Well, unless maybe you have 1 contestant, then you can get away with it. If you have more than that, you need more than 3 judges. That's too much weight to put on anybody's shoulders. As a judge, I would not want to have only 2 other people, because it's still perception. And if you have one person perceiving something differently than the other 2, it's just not enough mathematically for me to feel comfortable with that. So I really urge area directors to have at least 5 voting judges, even at the area level. And then in division, of course, you have to have 7 judges, or again, equal number to the number of areas. We've got 4 areas, I think, in one division here. That's not at that level. 4 judges is not enough. So I would go try and division level. I would hope at least 7. They throw in that extra rule at the division and district level where no judge may share club membership with a contestant. That's tough when you've got an advanced club, especially if there's an advanced club representative in your division contest. That rules out everybody. Multiplies, because you've got all these people, you're a club member with that person, but that person is in another home club. That wipes out 2 clubs. And you do an entire, and that it's an advanced club member in there, it can easily wipe out your entire district. And the chief judge and the contest chair are going to have to figure out some way to do it, which is either bringing in people from outside the division to be your judges, or else kind of ignore the rule. So it's a tricky thing. This is really more of a chief judge issue than it is a regular judge. But I do want you to understand that when you're asked to be a judge, this is why they're so desperate to get you, because it can really get into a pinch in finding judges. So especially if you've gone through this training and you're a good qualified judge and they call you and say, I need you, then do everything you can to do it. And it's a great experience for you. The more obviously, the more you judge, the better you're going to be. But it's just also helps out the district and again, respects the process. Okay. All right, you're a judge. You've agreed to be a judge. What's going to happen? You get to the contest, and well, actually, I probably have this reversed. First thing you're going to do is sit down somewhere. Where do you sit? Someplace that gets you a good view. You don't want to be too far in the back of the room. You want to be able to hear every word. You want to be able to see all over the other heads. So get a good seat, but don't make it too close to another judge. You don't always know who the judges are, but you can usually figure it out because people carrying the black folder or something. Or often you'll know them. So just try and sit at least a chair or two away from the other judges. All right, then after you're sitting for a couple of minutes, there will be an announcement. Judges, please come out to the hallway. And at that point, you or wherever they send you, and you go sit down with the chief judge. And the chief judge will brief you. Every chief judge handles it differently, and that's why we do this kind of training, because in that 5-minute briefing, you're not going to learn enough to be a good judge. But it will remind you of these other things that you have learned or have thought about. So the chief judge, and so when you do that, you're going to stand around or sit around with the chief judge, and he's going to run through and he's going to do kind of a cheerleader thing. Tells you, don't be biased, don't forget to sign your ballot, run through some details like that. It's important to take that seriously too. It is serious business because, again, it goes back to that very first slide, the Corey Mays of the world, which is everyone who's ever been in a contest, whether it's at the club level or beyond, you've got to respect the work they've put into it. And I really believe that contest is, the contestants are why we're holding that contest. It's kind of silly to call it a contest if we don't have contestants. It's about the contestant. So respect that, take it seriously when you're doing the judge's briefing. They will ask you to do a judge's eligibility form. We'll get to that. We're going to look at that in just a moment. And don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't be in a rush. I don't care if the contest is late because the judges had a few questions. They'll wait for you. Get your questions answered before you go into the process. If you don't understand anything, you don't understand what's important, then go ahead and ask the chief judge at that point, or even any of the experienced judges there. Pull them aside and say, hey, can you help me? I'm not sure about this thing on the form. So get your questions answered before the contest starts. Voting judges at all levels shall remain anonymous when practical. That's what the rule book says. And it's true. It's pretty impractical. Because all they have to do is, number one, look for, everybody got one of those folders, look at the people writing a lot, or they can look at when they say, all right, judges, hold up your ballots. Usually there's not much anonymity, but remain anonymous when practical. Don't run telling everybody that you're a judge before the contest. After the contest, you can say you judged. Just don't tell them what you did on your ballot. There's a judge's certification eligibility. There's something a little tricky about this, and it happens almost every time somebody's a first-time judge. I said, but this doesn't make sense, and because it doesn't. Okay, laser's not good that far. It wasn't there, and I just missed it. It must be probably really tiny.
Maybe you're too high.
You had up in top.
There it is. All right, check one, name of contest. You're only going to get one of these forms. You're probably going to be doing two contests. You're going to be doing tall tales, and you're going to be doing international. Probably, and in the future years, it might be international and something else. But you've only got one. How do you check? Which one do you check? Well, go ahead and check them both. Officially, you're supposed to do one of these forms for each contest. So you would do two of these forms each time. I don't know of any chief judge who has ever asked to actually have you actually do that. So just check both boxes.
I actually check those off on the date before as a chief judge, that way they have less things that have to focus on, and they can listen better during the judgment.
That's a good idea. All right, as a chief, when you're chief judge, go ahead and fill this out for them. It really doesn't matter what they put here, so you're just going on the record here. So that's a good idea. So date of contest and what contests there are, and of course level, which is club area, et cetera. All right, eligibility, I cut that off so I could get the whole thing on the screen. We already ran through the eligibility. It's going to say pretty much what we just talked about. The Judge's Code of Ethics. All right, now we're not going to go into that detail now. That's something we're going to look at more closely later. But I wanted to point out that it's going to be on this sheet, and it's going to be right above your signature. So you are promising, you are vowing that you are eligible and that you're going to follow this Code of Ethics. Does it matter? Probably not the ethics, that's a moral thing. Eligibility, you don't want to find out later that you weren't, your ballot could be thrown out if they find out you weren't eligible and you signed it. So that's could be complications. Okay, now what happens to these forms? Probably nothing. They're going to go into the chief judge's pocket or folder, and the chief judge will carry it around until the next contest is completed. Not carry it around literally, but have it stored. And then they'll probably dispose of it. It does not get sent back to Toastmasters headquarters, but it is on the record. If there is an issue that comes up, something happens, then they may go back and look at this and see, did you sign this, and was it an issue, and whose fault was something or another. So it do take it seriously. And again, so this just goes back to the chief judge, and then you'll probably never see it again. All right, when you're handed the ballot, now we're still talking about in the judge's briefing, that you'll be just handed a folder probably, and in it will be your ballots, one for each contest. Go ahead and sign it right there. If your ballot isn't signed, it doesn't count. So all that work they did to recruit these judges into this and have it so delicately balanced to meet the requirements, and suddenly they find out one of their ballots isn't valid. And all that, we talked about having enough people, enough opinions to make it valid. If you have 5 judges there and suddenly you lost one, that's huge. That really, it puts an extra load on those other 4 judges and reduces the odds that you had a well-judged contest. So first thing, as soon as you get that ballot, sign it and put your name in fine print. I mean, not fine print, and print it. Sign it and print it. Before you've seen a single speech, before you've even walked into the room, you're still doing the judge's briefing. Then you've got, you don't have to do this, but I would recommend that you also tear off the ballot at that point. Separate it from your judging sheet. There's several reasons for that. One is when it comes time to make the decision, it's not as noisy, because remember this is during the time, a moment of silence, and you don't want it to be too noisy. It also makes it faster. It saves you time, the ripping time later when they're kind of in a hurry to get the ballots all collected. And then thirdly, have you ever seen the accordion method that people use during a contest? When they're, some people will, and we'll talk more about this later, will fold their ballot over as for each speaker to hide the other ballots with the speeches you've already scored. And if you don't tear this off first, you're going to have an accordion ballot, which is kind of annoying when they're counting ballots and everything. So for all those reasons, do this as soon as you're handed the ballot. While you're listening to the briefing, go ahead and fill this out and do it immediately.
Mike,
Yeah.
if I may, could you speak to the fact that we want to have the first, second, and third places filled in case somebody decides that they're unable to attend?
Sure, we'll cover that later, I think, yeah.
Terrific.
This is just, we're still in the judge's briefing, but yes, we will later, we'll go through some rules, make sure you have first, second, third, no ties, and a few other things about filling this out, so, and making the decision. We'll get to that, I promise. The tie-breaking judge is a little bit different animal, though. They do not count towards the other, jumped ahead on my bullets, they do not count as part of your judging team. So when they say you need to have 5 judges, tie-breaking judge does not count. The tie-breaking judge is super anonymous. The only people who know who the identity of the tie-breaking judge should be the chief judge and you as tie-breaking judge. Not even the contest chair is supposed to know. The other judges are not supposed to know. It's kind of a secret. So this one is super anonymous. You know, and you don't attend the judge's briefing. I've seen that sometimes too. They go around and say, okay, well, how come my ballot's different? Because you're the tie-breaking judge and you're not supposed to be here. It's no longer a secret. So just don't, that's why it's usually an experienced judge, is the tie-breaking judge, somebody who's really experienced, because they don't get to hear the briefing, they don't get that reminder. And they do get a different ballot. It has places for all the speakers, 9 slots, I believe it is, to rank. They have to rank all the speakers, not just first, second, and third. The vote is counted differently. First of all, it's going to be collected a little bit differently, is that the ballot counters will not pick up the tie-breaking judge's ballot. Instead, when the judges say, when the contest chair says, judges, please hold up your ballots, if you're chief judge, do not hold up your ballot. I mean, not chief judge. If you're tie-breaking judge, do not hold up your ballot. Keep it down, and the chief judge should come over and quietly kind of hand it to you, kind of quietly, and so nobody can tell who it